I do work for Ethicon. This is accredited through the AORN of California. So if you have any specific questions to any products, we'll kind of save those for after the presentation. Let's hope that it works. Okay, so the objectives. We're going to go over the contents of surgical smoke. We'll talk about some of the guidelines and how to drive compliance. We'll discuss some of the necessary things you need for smoke evacuation, the equipment, different things maybe you guys already have, discuss some of the best surgical practices, and then understand the benefits of implementing a smoke evacuation program. And then the quiz. Okay, objective 1, describe the contents of surgical smoke. There's a huge delay whenever I do this, sorry. Loading. Okay. So, what is surgical smoke? When you guys think of surgical smoke, what do you guys think of? Stinky, cautery, you can smell it way out in the hallway. Barbecue.
Barbecue sounds a lot better.
Char, yeah. So it's, you know, the heat released, a lot of it is water, but there's also a lot of crap in it. That's the dangerous part of it. And so we'll go over, it's called a lot of different things: cautery smoke, smoke plume. This thing's killing me. Bioaerosols. So 95% of, like I said, it's made up of water, but then it's 5% that organic and inorganic compounds. That's the nasty stuff that's in there. So what is some of that stuff? Live cellular material. Gaseous toxic compounds, blood fragments, viruses, bioaerosols, bacteria, all kinds of gross stuff. Some things that have been found in surgical smoke: formaldehyde carcinogen. Does that surprise anybody? Benzene, known neurotoxin. Carbon monoxide, we know that's poisonous. Hydrogen cyanide. These are all different things that have been found whenever you capture surgical smoke. They did a study at one of our hospitals where they kind of captured it in this hood type device, and they confirmed all these things, because I just wondered how much of it is really actually in there. And they found all of this stuff, which is absolutely disgusting. So what happens to surgical smoke? It gets down into the little alveoli region in your lungs, because these particles, they're very small. A lot of them are less than, they go right through the mask, pretty much. So what kind of masks are you guys wearing? What kind of surgical masks? Does anybody wear N95 respirators here? No. Are they available for you guys? Where are they located?
When we have a TB patient, they're brought over from materials.
They're brought from materials, so they're not right outside the OR where all the other masks are. That's usually the case in most places I go. You know, they said, oh, in this closet in the back corner. But you know, without an N95 respirator, a lot of that smoke is going to go right through those masks that you guys are currently using. So of these surgical devices right here, which ones do you think emit smoke? All of them? Drills? I didn't realize, you know, when we were doing a smoke evacuation case, we, you know, put it on the pencil, and then ortho's in there working, creating a horrible smell, sawing on all this bone. So even though you may use a smoke evacuator on your pencil, there's still all kinds of other equipment in there that's creating stuff. Lasers. Do you guys do anything for laser cases? Anything special for laser cases?
Laser mask.
You have a what?
Laser mask.
Laser masks. Okay. Any special smoke evacuators with lasers?
Sometimes, depending on if it's applicable or not.
Okay. So you guys do some stuff for that. That's good. So when you think of the operating room, circulator, scrub tech, surgeon, sales rep. Who's at the biggest risk? Who's at the greatest risk of surgical smoke in the OR? Who do you guys think?
People in the field.
People on the sterile field? Circulator, everyone? This slideshow's killing me, the delay. Okay, so once you hit the button on the pencil and you start to see that smoke come up, it travels at 40 miles per hour in the room. Anybody surprised by that? The airflow? So that smoke, it may be right there, but it's gonna infiltrate that room very quickly at 40 miles per hour. So the air, you're gonna have about 60 particles per cubic foot. Once you start doing a bunch of cautery, it can go all the way to up to over 1 million per cubic foot. So after the activation of a pencil and you get all that cautery smoke in the air, it can take up to 20 minutes for it to fully fall down and turn over in the room. Because we know that air turns over in an OR X amount of times per hour with the flow that we have, but it can literally take up to 20 minutes for all those particles to settle after you've activated cautery and put that stuff in the air. So when you talk about the hospitals wanting to do quick turnovers, I guess theoretically if you're doing cautery and you do a really fast 10-minute turnover, let's say for a little case, you can still have that patient's particles in the air. That kind of freaked me out when a nurse was talking about that when I watched her do this presentation. So who's at the greatest risk in the OR? It's everybody because of that traveling 40 miles per hour. So a person several feet, the circulator over here away from the field, they have the same, pretty much same exposure as the techs do, and the surgeon right up at the sterile field. So how many people are affected by this? So it estimates that 500,000 surgical or healthcare workers are exposed to surgical smoke each year. I think it's probably a little greater than that. That's more than the population of Atlanta. So currently, what are your guys' practices around smoke evacuation right now? Just kind of standard stuff, your pencils. Breathe it in, take it in. That's what it is.
That's literally.
Yank out suction. Yeah. Anything else you guys are doing special? Like you said, no N95s or special masks, anything like that. Okay. So, crazy fact: 1 gram of tissue is equal to 6 unfiltered cigarettes. So 1 gram of tissue is about the size of a dime. So, how many packs of cigarettes a day are you guys smoking?
A lot.
Depends on what case you're doing. Big spine case, couple packs. We already talked about that, some of the carcinogenic compounds that are found in there. Living and dead materials, as well as blood fragments and viruses. There was a group in Denver, Colorado, where a gynonc, the PA, and the first assist all ended up getting HPV of the throat. And they completely attribute it, obviously, to surgical smoke. What's that? I don't know if they got I don't know what the law thing is, but they're definitely the ones speaking on the Senate floor, so it's probably going to be mandated in the state of Colorado. But there's a lot of these anecdotal stories. There was a surgeon, I think he was I can't remember exactly the kind of surgeon he was, but he's operated for 25 years. He was a marathon runner. He was super healthy. He came down with bladder cancer, and when they did the histology report or whatever, it was the same bladder cancer that smokers get. And he had never smoked a cigarette a day in his life because he was super healthy. So there's all kinds of these stories out there. There was an orthopedic surgeon, I think in Arizona. It was on the front of the Outpatient Surgery magazine. He had to have a double lung transplant. Same thing, never smoked, but he'd been a surgeon for 30 30 plus years, breathing all that smoke in the OR. So we're hearing more and more of these stories, and I think workplace practices are really going to start to change here. So who's informed about surgical smoke? So 4,500 healthcare workers in a CDC study who responded as being exposed to surgical smoke stated that only 50% of the time a smoke evacuator was used during laser surgery. I think we had a policy in about 1997 in the AORN suggesting that you should absolutely use one with a laser, and only 50% of the time they used one. 15% of the time a smoke evacuation was used during electrosurgery, so pretty low. 50% of the people had never received any training on the hazards of surgical smoke. Not you guys now, right? After you pass the quiz. 33% stated that smoke evacuator use was not a part of their workplace protocol. Do you guys have any policies yet around this, or working on it, Molly? I'm guessing that's probably maybe why I'm here. Or
Yeah.
Okay, starting to talk about it.
It was shut down by surgeons.
By surgeons?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
interesting.
Yep. Maybe they need to listen to this presentation.
That's, yeah. We're in the similar situation. I was up at Children's Mercy yesterday, same thing. They wanted to do smoke evacuation, want to put a policy in place, and then the chief of surgery shut it down. So now they've gone to the VP level. They're going to run it a different route, but that's always one of the number one things is I don't have a problem with surgical smoke. That's what the surgeon always says. It's not a problem.
It's my choice if I want to use it or not.
Yeah, but you know, if you think about it, maybe a busy surgeon has maybe 3 block days a week, and he's going to do 3 or 5 cases 3 days a week. Think about you guys. You're in there 5-6 days a week with call nights, weekends. You're doing multiple cases a day. You know, a ton of cases per week. Your exposure can be a lot more than them. So you know, that's something you gotta press with them, that they're not the only ones in the room being exposed to this. So, okay, objective 2. These are some of the guidelines and legislations. NEOSH, publication on the control of smoke from lasers and electrosurgical procedures. So 2 recommendations that they have, 2 controls: ventilation and workplace practices. So this documents identifies that in order to properly remove surgical smoke, it takes a combination of the appropriate equipment, so not just masks, but something to effectively remove the smoke from the surgical field, but then also proper practice. And that's going to be the hard part, implementing this, getting the surgeons to change their practice, because we know they do not like change. OSHA obviously has guidelines. There's a general duty clause in there about occupational safety in the Health Act. So each employer shall furnish to each of his employees employment and a place of employment which are free from recognized hazards that are causing or are likely to cause death or serious physical harm to his employees. So technically, OSHA, there's already a clause in there. If you read this and we know the dangers of surgical smoke, then they need to be providing you with something in order to appropriately keep you guys safe from surgical smoke. So some of the methods that we know, AORN, they have guidelines in 2017 that they've written. This is a really great reference as you guys look to implement a smoke program. Rely on the AORN and the resources that they've provided. The lady who actually wrote the book on this, Dr. Kay Ball, I was able to listen to her speak on this. She's very passionate about it. So a lot of information out there through AORN to help you guys with the smoke evacuation program. Obviously, it's going to give you resources and the evidence to help you guys. This thing has about a 5-second delay. So the recommendations, there's 5 recommendations from AORN. So number 1, the healthcare organization should provide a surgical smoke-free work environment. Second recommendation, the perioperative team should evacuate all surgical smoke. We don't just want to suck it away, because if we use that yank hour and just suck it away, it's going straight into the wall. So we're not filling it, or we're not filtering the smoke, we're just pulling it into the wall. And then that can cause a whole nother issue in your pipes and causing buildup and corrosion in there. So we want to avoid that. Recommendation 3, perioperative team members should receive initial and ongoing education and competency verification on surgical smoke safety. Recommendation 4, policies and procedures for surgical smoke safety should be developed, reviewed periodically, revised as necessary, and readily available in the practice setting in which they are used. And then recommendation 5, personnel should participate in a variety of quality assurance and performance improvement activities that are consistent with the healthcare organization's plans to improve understanding and compliance. So it's like the Go Clear Award. Are you guys familiar with the Go Clear Award? What it stands for? I think that's in one of the upcoming slides here. So AORMN recommendations. Surgical masks provide a secondary means of protection against residual surgical smoke that evades evacuation. So primarily we need to do something to pull it away from the field, and then secondary we need something else like a mask. We all wear masks, but N95 respirators, we know that they're uncomfortable, they're hot, especially if you're going to wear them for any amount of time. Like it says, you need to wear high filtration or N95 masks. So evidence shows that surgical masks may not fully protect healthcare workers against surgical smoke. Again, we probably already know that. So Rhode Island is the first state to mandate this. You have to use smoke evacuation. They passed it June 4th, and then they actually had to be smoke-free by January 1 of this year. So it had to be both in hospitals and surgery centers. So it's now state law. Like I said, it goes into effect this year, and they had 90 days to comply. And I think more of this is coming. I think California, it's come up 2 times. They're just trying to decide who's going to pay for it. You know how the government works. But it's definitely coming. Colorado's going to follow shortly, and a lot of places are having conversations about this at a state level. So internal practices, let's talk about some of that. A lot of Nordic companies, or countries, they're already doing this as well. Canada, I know for sure, pretty much all of their ORs are smoke-free. So they all recognize that surgical smoke is dangerous and that they should do something about it. The ICSP, International Council on Surgical Plume, this is another organization that's got a lot of resources for you guys as you start to put a program together. How many of you guys are members of AORN? So if you're a member of AORN, you actually have a free membership to the ICSP. So as you're working through these programs, make sure to reach out to them, and you can get all kinds of resources to help you with this. Skip through that. So objective 3, we're going to talk about some of the equipment and recommended surgical practices. So one of the main things is obviously a smoke evacuation pencil. And then on the pencil, you're going to have some kind of tubing connected to some piece of the capital equipment. You guys said you already have some Buffalo stuff in here, is that right? And then do you guys have Neptunes here, I'm guessing? So a lot of times whenever you're doing this, you've already got some capital equipment that you can already tap into. The filters, we want to make sure we're using the correct filter. Everybody knows like HEPA filters, that's on like your vacuum cleaner. A lot of times they're going to suggest ULPA filters, which obviously it just filters it down to a much smaller level to protect you so it doesn't get into your lungs way deep down in there. And then fluid traps, I'll have a picture of that here in a second. And then obviously the right kind of connectors. There's a million different kinds of smoke evacuation pencils and equipment out there. So there's a lot of different kinds of adapters as well. This is just kind of a picture of some of the devices that are out there to help protect you from surgical smoke. You have a cord, obviously it's going to have to plug into your generator so you get power. So you have the electrosurgical pencil right here, activating, creating smoke. We'll grab it. Nice little animation there, showing you a candle, how it's going to pull the smoke away. That's an example of a piece of capital equipment, and this right here is like a fluid trap. So when you think about it, whenever you're working on the surgical field, you're going to get bleeding, you're going to have liquid irrigation. So it can't just grab the surgical smoke. A lot of times you're going to grab some fluid as well. We don't want that fluid going straight into your filters, your ULPA filters, or whatever filter you're using, because once that gets saturated with liquid, it's going to ruin the filter and it's going to be cause it to be inefficient. So this little fluid trap here, as you're sucking up the smoke and getting some liquid, it's going to fall down into this trap, and it's not going to go into your filter, and it'll extend the life of your equipment. So it's a nice option out there. Again, smoke evacuators, we've talked about that. There's all kinds of different ones. A lot of them are a lot more quiet, especially than they used to be. That's going to be one of the complaints you'll get from surgeons as you're doing this, is, you know, oh, that thing's loud, or I can hear it. Well, you know, they've got music playing, they've already got suction on the field, other things. It'll blend in, but it is, you know, it is an added noise, but you have to have power in order to suck the stuff away. Obviously, laparoscopic cases is another area you'll have to look at evacuating smoke. So there's different options there with evacuators that can be used in laparoscopic mode, so they're not going to pull down the pneumoperitoneum that you have. So the filters, like we talked about, the HEPAs or the HEPA filters, these are ULPA filters, ultra low penetration air filters. So it filters at a 99.99% efficiency down to 0.12 microns. So very important, so that doesn't get into our lungs. Whereas the HEPA filters just do 0.3. This is an example of a charcoal filter over here on the right. These are on the back of some of the smoke evacuators. These will help with the smell. That is the main reason for a charcoal filter, is it'll help with the smell as it's going through your smoke evacuator. And then replace the filters as recommended. Inline filters. Are you guys using any inline filters before it goes into the wall right now? Do any of these look familiar? No? Okay. These are nice because it'll just go between your suction devices and the wall, so it's going to help with corrosive buildup that gets in those pipes. I've seen pictures of them. It's disgusting, and it just diminishes the suction that you guys have anyways from the wall. So these are really nice to have to extend the life of your wall plumbing, really. We'll go on. Here's a larger picture of the fluid trap. Like I talked about, the pencils, they're going to grab some fluid in there as well. So this is going to keep you from ruining your filter. So adapters, there's a bunch of different adapters out there. So whenever you're looking at this policy, whatever pencil, whatever capital equipment you use, there's going to be an adapter to work with what you've got. So, you know, work with your local sales reps or company, whatever company you're working with, in order to get the correct adapters that you need. So laparoscopic surgeries, passive versus active smoke removal. Have you guys ever used or trialed anything like this that just hooks up to a trocar? So you've seen this, kind of just goes through here. That's like that's an example of a passive system for smoke evacuation. And then there's like an active system where it actually hooks up to a generator on low flow and will run the air through that filter. So passive or active, either one, depending on what kind of equipment you guys have. What's that?
We had another one that hooks to suction.
Okay, exactly. That would be an example of that second one. Obviously, just put it on low flow so it doesn't suck all the
It has
pneumoperitoneum.
settings on it.
Perfect. Yeah. How many surgeons use those in laparoscopic cases here? Is it well adapted? Do they like it? Not like it?
The ones I see use them are on robots.
Robot cases, yeah. A lot of charm.
I make them use them.
You may, yeah. Because if not, at the end of the
I
case,
just
when
wonder
they
when I'll tell
pull a
them.
trocar out and desufflate the belly and all that smoke just goes flying into the room, that's always nice. Go over some surgical practices. So NEOSH, they recommend that you keep whatever smoke evacuator within 2 inches of the surgical site to effectively remove all the smoke. Have a smoke evacuator available in every operating room where plume is generated, and then evacuate all smoke no matter how much. Again, you're going to have to work with your surgeon on that. So keep it on when airborne particles are produced. Use new tubing after each case, and then replace the filters as recommended by the manufacturer. That's obviously important. And then inspect the evacuator regularly to make sure everything's working good. Consider it all infectious waste and dispose of them appropriately. So AORN guideline, it should be positioned as close to the surgical site as possible to effectively capture all of it, again within 2 inches of the surgical site, ideally. The different kinds of smoke pencils that are out there, some of them have telescopic ends because we know if we're working deep in the pelvis or down deep in a hip, just a standard cautery tip or pencil is not going to work. You're going to have some kind of extended tip on there, but you also want to be able to effectively grab the smoke. So some of the different pencils out there, they'll extend down. Some are more ergonomic than the others. It's just going to be up to you guys and your surgeons which ones work best for you guys. So objective 4, we're almost there. Understanding the benefits of implementing a smoke evacuation program. Come on. Okay, so getting started. Obviously we're here now, so you guys are probably starting the process of talking about it, learning about the dangers of the smoke, but make sure you get everybody involved in it, from materials management, employee health, infection prevention, obviously OR staff, nurses, everybody all the way up. So a team approach is going to be the best way to implement a program. Perform a gap analysis, so kind of figure out what you guys already have in the operating room that you can work with, pieces of capital you already have, but then also what kind of pencils you guys may need, tubing, anything like that, and then having a policy in place that you guys can refer to. So when the physician says, hey, I'm not going to do this, you refer to the policy that MU has in place to help support you guys. So how to conduct an evaluation, like we talked about, multidisciplinary team approach. We want to make sure that everybody's involved in this, so we can drive it from different angles. The cost. This is obviously going to cost something. Nothing is ever free, and whenever you're adding more stuff in the OR, there's a cost to it. Something that you can always think about, though, is employee health. If you guys are evacuating smoke, theoretically you should have less respiratory issues, so less sick days. It seems like a lot of nurses typically always have respiratory issues, so it's a soft cost, but if people are calling in sick less because they have less respiratory issues, then that's a value to the hospital. A lot of companies, they'll have a program for capital equipment where they will place it or they will work with you guys. So that will help with the budget. This thing freezes constantly. I don't know why it's so slow. All right, policies and procedures. We talked about that. So ongoing education, that's kind of one of the main things, assessing as part of the AORN Go Clear award. So why are policies different? ECRI, they are an organization that talks about and implements programs. Obviously back in 1997, they recommended that you mandate that you use smoke evacuation on laser cases. So why in 1997 are we mandating it for lasers and we don't do it for electrocautery? Same type of smoke. Why 1997? It's 2019 now. Why is this not mandated everywhere? I don't know the answer. But like we've talked about, you guys already use something on a laser. Sometimes you use something with smoke. It just kind of depends. Keeping compliance levels high. The AORN, that's the clear, check, learn, evaluate, assess. That's the auditing tool. You guys have access to that. That will help you guys greatly. And then fall back on your policy and administration to help implement and enforce these with surgeons. So, alright, last part. Quiz. So, true or false? Smoke condensed from burning 1 gram of tissue has been shown to be equivalent to that of up to 6 unfiltered cigarettes.
True.
True. Good job. A person several feet from the sterile field has minimal exposure.
False.
False. Good. We have to have a verbal answer from everybody. It's like when you sit in the exit row on the airplane. You have to have a verbal yes that you'll help evacuate the plane. Evidence shows that surgical masks may not fully protect healthcare workers against surgical smoke. All right. 3 for 3. This thing would move faster. This is a hard one. So 3 potential compounds identified in surgical smoke. It was kind of at the beginning.
Carbon monoxide and
Benzene.
Wow, she gets an extra credit. She got them all. You get a donut. That's what. So what are the 2 types of filters that smoke evacuation units have? One on the front and the one on the back.
charcoal.
Charcoal. Not the HEPA, but the ULPA. Good job. ULPA. So insoluble particle matter can travel to which region of the lungs? Oh, good job. I always have a hard time with that word. So NEOSH recommends that the smoke pencil should be how close? Good job. Particles can travel how many miles per hour through the lung? That's it. So blank is the first state to mandate smoke evacuation. Rhode Island. And that's the end of my presentation. What kind of questions do you guys have? Questions, concerns, threats, comments? Anything? All right. To get the CE credit, do you have the flyer with the course ID on there?
I do.
Perfect. So there's just a website that you'll go to, enter this code, and that's how you get your CE for this course. It's 1 CE. And then, do we have a sign-in sheet? Or just turn that piece of paper over and just sign your name on there, and I'll turn it in on my end. That's all we need to do.
Or we have a sign-in sheet, and I can email you the list of people.
That's, yeah, that should be good.
Perfect.
So,
Okay.
I need to sign it.
Yeah.
all right. Thank you guys.
Thank you.